Bonjour and welcome to this week's edition of WRP's Cultural Events Show. I'm Terrance Gelenter, your American friend in Paris. In just a few moments, I'll welcome my guest, John Pearce. John Pearce, welcome to Paris.
Thank you very much, Terrance. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Delighted to see you again. As a reporter for the Associated Press and later an editor of an English language magazine in Germany and the spouse of a Washington Post reporter, how has that journalistic career prepared you to write these espionage novels?
Well, for one thing, it taught me how to put 2 or 3 words together in a coherent sentence. Not all the time, of course. The first drafts are not always really great. But I know how James Joyce felt the day he told a friend, I have 18 words that I wrote today. And the friend said, well, you must be very pleased with yourself. And Joyce said, I have no idea what order to put them in. That's the problem.
Well, that's why we have editors.
That's right. But you have to give editors good garbage to get better garbage out. That's garbage in, garbage out. Journalistic writing is simply different from fiction. What I write is thriller-type fiction. In any event, trying to write plot-based novels, which is what I write, means you have to be able to write short sentences, coherent sentences, understandable sentences, and that you have to rewrite a whole lot. Friends will take a look at one of my manuscripts, which are typically 300 typed pages, laser printed pages these days, and say, oh, that's a lot of work. And I say, yes, especially when you consider that you have to do that 5 times to have a complete novel.
You pretty much self-edited?
No, well, everybody has to be self-edited. You have to turn out a product that's acceptable. I use a series of editors. My primary editor is a woman in Canada who's been with me through all the books. Excellent, does a really, really super job. I have a proofreader in Australia and a cover designer in the north of England. So it's a very international operation.
Welcome to the internet.
Yes, yes.
You came to Paris, if I understand, sometime in the early 70s, brought by your new wife at the time, who's still your wife.
Yes, absolutely. We came together. We met and married when, actually we met and married covering the World Bank meeting in Washington in 1969. I was the Associated Press lead economics reporter in Washington at the time, and she was the Washington Post business and finance reporter. A year or so after we got married, we thought, well, let's go live in Europe. She was one of the girls who got out of college and came to Europe on a dime and spent
Junior year abroad, we call that program.
Right, yes, senior plus year abroad. She brought me to Paris, and that was the end of it. I mean, this is where I always want to come back to. We've seen most of the rest of France at one point or another, but this is our second home, and sometimes I feel like it's the first home.
Well, when did you begin the idea to begin to write espionage novels percolate?
Oh, 1971 or something like that.
It took you 41 years to get a book in print.
I'll tell you a story about that. When we lived in Paris, we decided to come back, and we booked tickets on the SS France to return. We came back on the France the year before it was taken out of service. And we set aside 2 months to travel through Greece and Turkey, basically, with some time in Italy. While we were in Italy, we were at a guest house run by an order of American nuns in Assisi, and I said, well, I think if John Le Carré can do this, I can do it. So I got my notebook out, and during the day I went down to the dining room, it was a pension, the dining room of this B&B basically, and started to try to write a novel. I still have that first notebook, and the best thing I can say about it is that it's a very good thing it never got published.
And where did Eddie Grant come from?
Eddie Grant is an unusual guy. He's a fully assimilated Franco-American. That is, he is half and half. His father was an American military spy who worked behind German lines in Périgord, in fact, during the war, right before the invasion. He met his wife, who would later become Eddie's mother at that time, she was working with her father. She was 11 years old, and he was 29 or something like that, but so what. And he got out of the Army, got crossways with a senior officer, but Eddie, his son, took after his father and his grandfather because they were American military men. And he thought it was his duty to be an American military man. And his father was insistent that even though he'd grown up in Paris and gone to French schools, he needed to go to college in the United States. Eddie was not an academic, shall we say. Best he could do was a little college in West Texas, right? Which, if you're from San Angelo, would look suspiciously like Texas Tech, but it's not. He went there. He went into the Army. He was a company commander in Special Forces during the first Gulf War, Desert Storm, and married a woman he met in college. It's the daughter of an American military officer. He just couldn't get away from it. After his military service was up, he moved back to Paris, picked up his father's business because his father was a very wealthy heir of a railroad, his father, the grandfather, had been one of the founders of a railroad that really built of a steel company, that really built the railroads after the Civil War. Right? So Eddie came back to Paris, built a business in Paris. He owns a lot of stuff. He's very wealthy. He's very good at it. Married Aurelie, the love of his life, which was a very close thing because Eddie had a lot of problems in his life. After he came back, some years after he came back, he had a son. They were living in Paris. The wife and son were murdered. They never found not immediately, found the murderers. His father died in suspicious circumstances, but it was written off as an old man having a heart attack in a car, which unfortunately later on had the bad luck to burn in Rennes. So he was kind of thrown for a loop at that point, and it really messed up his life. He met Aurelie, the daughter of a policeman, later to be a Sorbonne professor. An interesting physical contrast to Eddie. Eddie's a 6'1", dark-haired guy. She's a 6'1" blonde. You know, they really turn heads when the two of them pass by. Treasure of Saint-Lazare is about a specific painting by Raphael, the old master. He painted a painting in 1515 called Portrait of a Young Man. It is thought to be a self-portrait. Nobody's 100% sure of that, but it's thought to be a self-portrait. It was taken off the wall of a museum in Poland and kept during the duration of the war by Hans Frank, who was one of the classic bad guys of the Nazis, who was hanged after the war. At the end of the war, as the Germans were closing in on Krakow, he sent all of his spoils home to Munich, his home near Munich. This painting didn't arrive. It was on the manifest when it left. It was not on the truck when it arrived. Now that's fact. That's history. The question then is what happened to it? Well, nobody knows what happened to it. Frank's son wrote a book later on, a very bitter book about his father, in which he said that he suspected that his mother had traded it to some farmer for butter and it was hanging on a farmhouse wall right now. Last Stop Paris is a sequel, true sequel, to Treasure of Saint-Lazare.
Just stop me for a second. When you created the first, had you already planned out the next two or three? That you knew you wanted it to be a series, or you're waiting to see the reaction to Volume 1?
I was planning two, because I thought I could tell the whole story in two books. And we'll talk about the third one in a minute. It's not quite a sequel. But the first one is a complete story, except that it does not dig out the bad guy who's behind all of these murders and who really wanted to find this painting because he liked the money. And he has a history with Eddie going back to Kuwait in the first Gulf War, which we learn about later on. Treasure ends with them finding a bunch of gold, and you can tell from the title something about where they find it, but not the painting. The second book also does not have them find the painting because the painting hasn't been found. I can't write that scene. You know? The second book, called Last Stop Paris, is about Eddie's search for the man who turns out to have been the man behind the whole mess. And it's a pretty dramatic story, which I also enjoyed writing. I did not have it totally plotted out when I finished Treasure of Saint-Lazare, but then I didn't have Treasure of Saint-Lazare totally plotted out when I started it.
You sold 30,000 copies of these three books as not entirely a self-published author, but pretty much. You're using the internet Talk about that, because I know many people that are listening are writers, and I've done a little bit of writing, and it's very difficult to get the attention of a publisher, as you well know. So you've taken a contemporary approach to getting your books out there, and 30,000 copies is quite an achievement. Talk about that.
I started out fully intending to find an agent and a publisher in the whole 9 yards, because I thought the story probably justified it. I thought it was a good enough story to sell. The publishing business has changed a whole lot. It was changing at the time I wrote this book, but it's changed even more since then. I queried not a whole lot of agents, but some agents, and I had 2 agents who wanted to represent it, but I didn't like either one of them. It just wasn't, the chemistry was not there. So I thought, well, independent publishing, and I refer to myself as an independent publisher, not a self-publisher, because even though I don't have a big 6 publisher, I have my own publishing company, and I have my own staff, even though they are freelancers. Well, they're the same freelancers who do work for the big publishing companies. They no longer are on salary there. You know, they're out doing gig work too. So I thought, I can do this technical stuff. I'm kind of techie, which turned out to be a little bit of a problem for the first one, but none thereafter. I know words pretty well. I can find an editor, and I can do some self-editing, and then find an editor and work through their recommendations. And then marketing is what I did. So I have a pretty good idea how to do that. And fortunately, marketing has changed a bunch since the first book came out, and it's a lot easier now. So I decided to try it, and it worked so well the first time. Well, it did not hurt that Reader's Favorite, the big book review site, picked Treasure as the best historical mystery of the year. There's a badge on the cover, gold medalist.
If listeners are interested in following up on these questions, how can they find you? What's the best way to reach you via email?
There are 2 ways. I have a blog that I call parttimeparisian.com, and there's a contact form there too. I have a book site, which is johnpearcebooks.com.
Pearce.
Very good.
Not like the president.
Thank you very much. And you can reach me through my email. I don't mind putting my own email out there.
Let's hear it.
Which is JMP, that's my initials, John M. Pearce, at JMPFL for Florida. So it's JMP at jmpinflorida.com. JMP at jmpfl.com.